Hello Internet, welcome back to part 2 of our Let's Make Emotible video series. I should have thought of something smarter to say there. Eventually I'll have an intro. Anyway, let's get on to this. So, this is what we have to catch everybody up if it's been a while since yesterday. Here is our app that we created. It fires off an event when I click this. Pretty sure I removed the breakpoint, so nothing's going to happen. But you get the idea. What we're going to do now is we're going to finish the app. That sounds a little bit weird because, well, it doesn't look anywhere near close to finished. And it still isn't going to look anywhere near close to finished. But what we're going to do is we're going to make sure all of the major functionality is there. And then we're going to refactor everything out and make the app look pretty. Those are the next two steps we need to make. But first, let's make sure everything works and we can actually use it. And then once all of the groundwork is in place, then we can actually build it up and make it awesome. Make it something people want to use. Before I forget, I'm going to turn quiet hours on. Turn it back on, because otherwise we'll get interrupted again. And here we go. So these are our emoticons, I guess. And they are going to fire off this command. Right now, this is just doing a bunch of junk stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this the content that we're passing in as this parameter, and I'm going to actually consume that. So how this is going to work is we're going to do... how do we want to do this? String param content equals parameter as string. So there's two ways to cast things in C#. One is this as keyword, and one is the standard C-style casting, like this. This doesn't really make any sense because I'm casting things twice. And it's saying that here by commenting that out. But the difference between the two is this one, the as, is going to attempt to cast it, and if it fails, it's going to return null. The C-style cast, if it fails, it's going to throw an exception. And that's the main difference. And so we don't want to throw exceptions. It's not really an exception. It shouldn't really ever happen anyway, but we just want to say if it's not null, then we'll use it. So if content is not null, and that's all we're going to do. Next, I have on one of my other screens, I pulled up how to actually access the clipboard. Did a little bit of work beforehand just to figure out how to do this because I've done it before, but I had forgotten. To do it, there is a clipboard object, which should have been obvious. And the way you use it is a little bit different. So this clipboard is going to equal, how do we create this? We are going to, it's a static object. Okay, so we need a data package. And so a data package is what's copied to your clipboard. So on Windows, a clipboard thing can hold anything you want. If you've ever used, copied an image onto Facebook, for example, or done anything similar to that, that's coming from your clipboard. So your clipboard can hold formatted text, it can hold images, it can hold just plain text like we're going to use, and probably anything else you really care about. And so to handle that, there's this data package wrapper thing. And so this is going to be our clip contents. And we're going to create a new data package without any parameters. Yeah. And then all you have to do is do your clip contents and set the text. And so we already know the content from our command that's coming in that argument is going to be non-null, because otherwise it wouldn't get into this if. So we can just consume that here and set that as a text. So once this works, we should be able to copy hello and world onto our clipboard, and that should work. So next, we just need clipboard.setContent equal to the clip contents. And this should be everything we need. So I'm going to open up copy of Visual Studio Code so we can just copy and paste things in. There we go. Don't know why I did that when I have Visual Studio. It's a text editor. I can paste things into Visual Studio. Don't know why I opened that, but I did. So here we go. Hello, copy, paste, and world, paste. Cool. So we've got hello world going on. Pretty simple. But the cool thing is that's really the only functionality we need in our app. That's the core feature. It's a clipboard. The hard part is we aren't going to be copying these kind of texts. We're going to be copying some fun Unicode stuff, which doesn't actually change anything. It just looks cooler. So yeah, that's pretty much that. That is, in a nutshell, our app working. Yeah. So next, as I was saying, the next step is pretty much to refactor this and make the UI better than those two buttons just sitting there awkwardly. So we want to get rid of this because this is gross, and we want to make it cooler. So what I'm kind of thinking is we're going to do some sort of grid, and we're probably going to need to measure each of the elements, and then we can just stack it this way and just kind of fill out the grid until we get to the end, and that will be the app interface. So I've tried this before. I've tried making this app before, and that grid has always annoyed me because it's never really worked well. And I'm not entirely sure why, but it's been really annoying. So I think what we're going to start with is we're going to start with just a normal grid. We're going to drop things in there, and then if we can, we're going to expand that off and make it adapt to the size of the elements. But for now, I don't think that's a needed feature. That can come in version 2 or version 3 or later. But for now, let's actually just get things out the door. So to do that, we're going to probably want to start by making a control to hold this. Because right now we're just using a button in a template, and that makes it kind of hard to do a lot of the stuff we're trying to do, because we can't really play around with things. We can, if we want to change things, we have to edit this data template, and that means that this is going to get really complicated. And if we ever want to use it again, we're going to have to copy all of that and use it again. So I don't really want to deal with that. So how we're going to work around that is we're going to create a new control, and we're going to expose a lot of those dependency properties and actually allow our bindings to work against those. And that'll give us a good opportunity to actually work around with these dependency properties and see how they work. So I'm going to create an Emotible. I think that's a good name. So we want a new user control. We're going to call it the Emotible control. And so this is just going to be a square that's going to hold our information. So for now, all we need is let's just copy what we have right now. Let's make it a button. Actually, if we're going to copy what we have, let's literally just copy things. So we'll take that and drop it. Ooh, that is not where it needs to go. This is the app. We don't want it there. So let's not do that and put it here instead. Cool. Now, I'm not going to actually change these bindings yet. We will eventually, because this probably is not a good idea, because it's kind of hiding what is being bound to what, and it's kind of giving this a dependency on our view model, and we really want those two to be separate and to handle the bindings where they're taking place. So this is what is actually doing the things. So here it kind of made some sense, and that's where we still want these data bindings to happen. In the actual thing, we want it to be bound to itself. We want controls to be self-contained as much as possible, and that allows them to be reused with different data and so forth. So now we need to replace this guy with our local app, local Emotible view. And so all local is this is pre-generated with your default template, but it's just pointing to the default namespace, which is Emotible. So this top level namespace, which is where our new control is. And so we'll just look that up, place it here, and set the data context to that shortcut binding. So assuming we did this right, it should still work, or look somewhat similar. We should get our buttons and they should be bound. Unless I'm wrong. I hope I'm not wrong. There we go. Okay. So the same thing is happening. The only difference now is that this is happening in a user control. So we added a layer. But the cool thing with this is now that layer can be used anywhere in our app. If we ever need to reuse it, it's there. And we can also now start modifying things. So I'm going to go in here, and we are going to add, let's just totally go to town on this thing. So right now it's a button, does some things. Don't really like that. So does this work? Design in blend. Pretty sure my expression blend is totally broken. I don't think it works. Pretty sure it's just dying now. But expression blend is where it's a tool for UI work. Oh, here he goes. And so this kind of, it looks very similar to Visual Studio, and it gives you a lot of the same features. But if you're working in UI, as you can see, it makes it much nicer, and it makes it more visual. It's also got like animation designers and things like that. Things you don't normally get in Visual Studio are exposed here. So if you need to work in UI, especially if you need to just mock it out, or if you have a UI designer on your team, give them this tool instead of Visual Studio and let them do the work here, and then bring it back to Visual Studio and do your code in there. So there's my suggestion for the day, I guess. Don't know if anybody was asking for those, but you got it anyway. So how this is going to work is we've got our button. I want to edit the template for this button. We're going to edit a copy. And I'm going to add it to our user control. So what we're doing is a template is kind of a theme or whatever attached onto our control. And so you can set the styles across multiple controls to make them look similar. So if you have like a rounded button and a square button, you can have two different styles and style each button in your application based on those styles without having to explicitly type each of the things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a copy of the default button one, and then we're going to edit that and make it better, hopefully. If not, well, then there's always delete. But this is design work. It's fun, isn't it? So let's call it the Emotible control button. That seems like a descriptive name for what it is, considering it's in the emote tile control, and it's the button in there. Cool. So this is currently only giving us our UI. I'm going to actually inspect XAML so we can see what happened there. And we got all of this stuff. So everything I just highlighted is the default style for that button. And this is what we're going to be editing. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's visual states, so your button obviously changes as you hover over it, for example. And that's all handled in this guy and down. That's what's handling that. There's a bunch of default styles for the text, for the fonts that are used. What else? Default colors. All of that fun stuff. So we want to change all of this. Maybe not all of it, but most of it. So, how are we going to do that? I don't know. Would have been smart to think this through first, but we're gonna go forward and screw things up. So I think for default, let's just make things super red, and then we know what's going on. I'm trying to remember what my C8. So that's a kind of darkish red. Not darkish red, but it's a red color. And so this will set the background of our button to red. And we can go and change it in these kind of things. So there's animations here. So when you, for example, press your button, the background, border brush, foreground, change. That's what these are handling. And this visual state object, the visual state manager, this guy, is what's going to handle those transitions. So that's sort of how this works. Just to kind of give you a feel for it, I'm going to save this and we can jump back to Visual Studio. It's going to ask me to reload because it saw our changes over in Blend. I'm going to say yes, get all this fun stuff. And if we start, well, you can already kind of see, but our button has turned red. So suddenly, instead of this blue guy, we get this. But as soon as we hover over it, like this, you'll notice all of that fun work we just did goes away. And that's because of our visual state. It's changing each time we do this. So we need to fix that. We need that to not happen. And to do that, we need to work with this stuff. For now, we're going to make it all the same. So the only thing that's going to change now is going to be the border and the foreground brush. Those are the only things that are going to change. This disabled one, I don't think there's ever a time when we're going to disable this button, but we'll keep this in just in case we need it. It doesn't really hurt if it's there. We're not using it, so why not? So now if we start it, we get this thing. So you can see it's it draws a border around it, a little dark blackish border around it, and it still acts like our button, but is red. That's what we did there. So we effectively removed the use of that visual state. It's gone. So we're not really dealing with it that much. But the cool thing with this is we've kind of set the groundwork for styling our buttons. When I figure out I'm kind of still working through in my head where I want this to go. I don't know if sticking with buttons is the best idea for now, but I think where we're at, I think that's a fine place to start. So the only other thing I'm going to change is this guy right here. And I am going to make him white. Which just FFFFFFF or whatever the heck that is. Yeah. So that's just going to be straight white. And I believe it changes, yep, the foreground changes here. And here and here. So I think we'll get back into Blend a little bit later. I like pulling out the templates from Blend because it's way nicer than Visual Studio. I think they actually added it. Yeah, so you can do it from here as well. I don't think you used to be able to do this though. Pretty sure this didn't exist in Visual Studio, but it does now. So you don't actually need Blend at all to do what I just did. You can do it all straight from Visual Studio. Blend is still cool though, and you should definitely check it out, especially if you're just prototyping something. You don't really need to ever touch Visual Studio to like prototype an app in Blend, which is pretty cool. So going back to this, we made our text white. Just demo that quick. Okay. So white text, red buttons. Cool. I like red. That's cool. Next, we want to expose the content and the command. Those seem to be the two that we want to expose, I guess. I'm going to fix the styling of that. I like doing each new thing on a separate line. I think it makes it easier to read. Some people might disagree. But with these, it can kind of stretch for a long time. You can see we've already got 5 commands here. This one just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And that's not really helpful to anybody. This was pre-generated. I didn't write this. This is part of the style. But I much prefer reading this than this. So there's another piece of whatever I called it before. Advice. Don't listen to me. My advice is terrible. Anyway, buttons. We're going to go with buttons. We're going to make these dependency properties. And the cool thing is there's a shortcut. So we're going to do this. And so that is a shim, I want to say. I don't remember exactly what Visual Studio calls them. I'm pretty sure they call them a shim. But it's a shortcut that does this. So we just generated a ton of stuff, all of that code, and this is what you need to create a dependency property. So we need a property type, string, and we need to name it. We're going to call it text. Text seems like a great name. And I think that's all we need. Yep. Yeah, so that's done. I'm going to change this. So this name there that I just deleted needs to be the exact same as this property. So to fix that, I am going to change it to a name of this text. And so name of is a C#6 feature, I want to say. And at compile time, it's going to take the name of what either the function or the property you gave it. So this will be the same as that string text. This name of will be this when we compile. But if you do it this way, I can go back later and do refactor or something against this text, and this name will then be picked up. I won't have to go and wonder why one change didn't get hit. So this is it's a nicer way to do this, because then when you're later on, when you're going back and fixing things, you don't miss something. But this is all we need, I think. I don't think there's anything else that is really necessary. The only other thing we need is we need another one. Dependency property. We're going to make this one an I command, and we're going to call it, I could have just called it command, but done. So we'll change this to a name of again. And then we will wire this thing in, if I can remember how to do that. So the difficult part is data bindings are a little bit tricky. I always forget how to data bind directly. So we've got these dependency properties, right? What we want to do is we want to bind what we have here. We want to bind this and this to our text and this onto our command. That's what we're going for. And then these properties are going to be exposed out here on our main page. And we can actually hook those up now. So we don't actually need that data context. Pretty sure that was just for show. May have actually thought we needed that, but it wasn't needed. That's actually handled by the items control. At least I believe that's how it works. If not, well, then it's some sort of magic. And I don't like magic. I lied. I love magic. What did we call it? We called it text. So we've got our text property. This is going to be that property we exposed. It's expecting a string. So I can bind it to the content. And then we'll also have a command. And we can bind to that too, which is our onClick. So now we're binding onto these dependency properties we created, which are going to come in here and do all of this. The reason you see them is this fancy thing that does a lot of really weird magic behind the scenes. Some of the magic I don't quite like, but this is required to expose this guy in your XAML so that other things can bind to it. If you don't have this, your code will still see all of these properties, but you won't be able to stick a dependency, or you won't be able to data bind to it. This is what allows that. And so by using those shims, or I think they're called shims. I'm going to call them shims. So by using those, you can actually connect to this. And yeah, that's what we need. So we've got those. Those are coming in, but they're not being used at all. I'm pretty sure it should still work, but it's not actually being used for anything. So if I would go here, you can see our hello and world are still there, but they're not coming from those bound objects. They're just coming because we have these data bindings going on that are automatically connecting to the thing. So I believe there's a way to do this, and I think that might be it. Or I could be wrong. I kind of just made things up, but I'm gonna pretend like that was smart. No, it doesn't like that. Okay, I think this will work. Binding, we want the command, and this we want our text, and this we want to be our text. Really don't think this is what I want. Refers to the element on which you are setting the binding and allows you to bind one property of that element to another property on the same element. I don't think this is what I want. Almost positive this isn't what I want. Right. Let me go figure out the answer, and then we'll come back and get this sorted out. What we needed to do is use this path, not source. We need a path equal to our name of our control. So we're just going to call it the Emotible. And this doesn't exist yet, and it's not going to like me for it, but I'm going to do this anyway, and then we'll fix it quick afterwards. So here's this. It really doesn't like this. That's because we have to go up here, and what people are saying you want to do is just give this a name. Sure, I like this. It feels like there should be some way without naming the control to just say bind this to the parent control. Bind this to whatever you own. I guess that doesn't really make sense considering these controls kind of fade away when you start layering them in the UI, but at the same time, we call this the emote tile. At the same time, this seems kind of fragile to me. I've done this before. I know I've done this before. And I know I didn't like it then. I still don't really like it now. So we're gonna continue forward. Local path or local machine. Let's test. See if this works. Clearly no. Clearly that was not the answer. Well then. I wonder what's going on. Path is set multiple times. What? 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 Oh. I know what's going on. That is the path. Derp. Okay. Well, and that's why you don't just copy and paste from the internet. So there is that stuff. This should work now. So all this is doing is saying, take the emote tile and get the text. That's all it's saying. Oh, that didn't work. I thought I was smart. I wasn't smart. Okay. Third attempt. Source equals the... Oh. No. That's wrong. How are they doing this? Binding path equals this. Okay. I'm gonna just go with what they have explicitly and see if anything weird happens. Because this is getting... I don't think I've ever done it that way before. And I think this is why, because I don't think this works. Okay. So, newsflash. The internet was wrong. Alright. One sec. I'm gonna figure this out. Okay. So, may have skipped over the part where they gave the actual answer instead of just quoting the wrong part. My bad. So there's a element name, which makes sense because it's the element you're binding to, and the path is the path that you're binding to. So what we need is the element name to be the name of our guy. What are we calling it? The emote tile. I should be copying and pasting you because you would be easier that way. So doing this, we'll take the element, which is our emote tile, and we'll bind it to the path of these things. Don't think this path is required. You can do that too. And this should be the same thing. Just to prove it, I'm going to do this. And then it's not going to work, and then I'm going to feel silly. But I'm going to do it anyway. Just because that's what I do. Okay, so it works. So you can do either. So if I go back here and stick a thing on our copy text command, just to prove everything is working. Suppose I could have just tested the clipboard function. That would have been smart. Well, you can see we're hitting this, which is what we need. I'll drop the breakpoint and continue through that. So everything works. We're now able to bind from here, from our main page, onto our new control, and then from there, this guy can bind onto its dependency properties and still call everything. So the app still looks fairly similar. The only difference now is that we have a themed, well, we have a tiled, or not tiled, what am I saying? We have a styled, no, it rhymes, right? It's so hard. So we have a styled control that is bound to some dependency properties, and that is bound to our view models, and all of that copies text to a clipboard when it's clicked. I know. Seems like a lot of work to get a clipboard, but that's what we have. The next step is going to be further refining this control. I think we're going to stick with the one tile stack, and then we can expand from there. So we'll spread it out and do some fun styling there. We'll probably add some entity framework database stuff to actually store which tiles are used and add some sorting. And then once we have just this grand list, I think that will be version 1. It'll be really basic, and it will be kind of not the greatest UI. But the cool thing is it will be a place where we can start and we can then iterate on it. Hopefully other people will notice it and then they'll want to contribute too. Or not. I'll just keep working on it anyway. But the idea there is we'll be able to get ourselves to a starting block. It will get us all of the core features without elaborating on anything really grand. And then from there, we can see what people like and what people don't like, and we can tweak it based on that. So there's where we're going. But I'm going to end it here. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Yeah. See you, Internet.